Vocabio. Master English your way.
All of them look like drug dealers almost in a like wild, fantastic way.
Capital. He's chairman of Schiff Gold, precious metals dealer that does what it says on the tin there.
So in Duterte's case, it's shoot the drug dealers, essentially. Have a war on.
He was doing off-the-books demolition work for his old dope dealer. The dope dealer started buying and selling real estate.
Her first book, Drug Dealer MD, was named by the New York Times as one of the top.
Using it for more nefarious reasons. Is it?
Norman has a hard act to follow, but the stage is yours.
Without much thought, and how the actors, the historical actors, often don't know what they're doing.
Messenger is dealing with poly-actors. He's dealing with superpowers, super empowered angry people.
Using it for more nefarious reasons. Is it?
A separatist state in its Slavic ally, Serbia, split apart, and Kosovo was.
If you're an ally to the recovery community, consider.
You can remember your partner is your ally, not your enemy. Because when it comes to love, you win.
And of course, Firenze is an ally. They are under enormous threat. And to stop...
President Zelensky will have no greater ally at this dark hour than the UK. Well, it's those...
country. One of the key movers was this fellow named John Dudley, and he assembled a group of...
And trying to identify who those movers and shakers are within our community that will be a shining...
And for this horizon of a possible shared commitment to our...
In those early years as a kind of first mover, but that's not to say by any stretch.
We have some of the future movers and shakers of the housing industry in the room. And
what happens if we play around with the ratios? What if instead of ending ourselves to AI videos?
We think about changing the ratio in the film industry. Let's see some more black and brown.
We have pretty high debt ratios by historical standards. They've gone up.
We realized we might try and send the golden ratio, 963.
The numbers and you start analyzing, well, let's take a ratio, let's plot a graph, let's just calculate percentages, because that...
The citizenship and immigration MAIDs. Let me now introduce the chairperson of the CUNY Board of Trustees.
Beautifully written, New York Times best-selling memoir, MAID, hard work, low pay, and a mother's...
12, more than 1,000 miles of water mains in New York City are over 100 years.
Say it's a trainee.
You know, it could have been a maidservant, we don't know. So it could be a kind of genre study.
Inside the buildings, they wish to see into the maid landscapes and the streets beyond, and simultaneously hope...
You would sample from a plume from a hydrothermal vent, because this is one of the most likely sources of life.
Do I scream? Do I vent? I don't know what to do. And then I said, wait.
At a deep sea hydrothermal vent. So yeah, having that active volcanism is important.
Foundation, which is like a vented crawl space essentially, with louvers all around the...
Those are the parts. The neural vent is undetermined in virtue of its parts being undetermined.
Did was to send his cyber troops into the US Treasury to get access to the data. That is not
the high human cost of war on our troops and on the people in the country where this war was being waged.
To beat them. He can never raise that many troops himself. And Hannibal, I think correctly...
Americans were to actually putting troops on the ground or staying in airplanes. I mean, was it...
Scenario in which Russian troops were going to be marching through Kent. But as in 1914, as in...
Really those things that, like antioxidants that fight oxidative stress. So science doesn't
Preservatives may be the culprit. Meanwhile, antioxidant preservatives prevent the chemical changes
like phytohormones, phytochemicals, and antioxidant levels, and also, as I mentioned,
known to be protective in terms of antioxidants and so forth, produce. So those are foods that are known to be protective in terms of antioxidants and so forth, produce. So those are foods that
ownership, because it's a very small lot, or we just own one condo in a larger building and it doesn't really work for us to have a rent.
A couple of years serving on a condo board,
until I finally got tired of being yelled at.
He's also a contributing editor to Condé Nast Traveler, editorial advisor on Geographical magazine.
I like when people said, oh, why would I be cooped up in a condo, when I can have lots of space? So the trend cuts in.
Files and cowardice. And he'd go through the 52 jokers that let him off the hook. They're cowards.
This is Camille's. It's the joke.
Famous, right?
The famous.
And the point is, this joker ended up putting his drone in.
Love it, fellow backstroker.
But no, I appreciate so much of the
and Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Famers, Julius Dr. J. Irving, George McGinnis, and Dan Issel.
John Devereaux, football alum, Hall of Famer, class of '57, who has mastered Zoom now.
But they passed on just one Hall of Famer after another. Obviously, hindsight's 20/20, but you would think at some point you would
rush. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. God bless you and your family.
Bless you as well.
To come to specific issues and specific complaints and manage them. That's the point I made right at the beginning.
Fit. You sometimes have this complaint that we don't have standardized sizes.
Right, there is the normal sort of customer complaint, customer satisfaction ticket system. They use a similar one for
a plantation with a promise that his complaint had been heard and that no punishment would be.
Movement. And it drew over 24,000 complaints to Ofcom, the TV regulator.
Where do we see concentrations of renters or of families with children at home?
They define homeownership and rentership as mutually exclusive. So the fact that if your
programs provide financial subsidies to renters and homeowners that require it. And this is by definition.
Driven organization of and for the multiracial renters of Connecticut working to.
One is that, renters are facing a record level of unaffordability. This chart is showing you how
type of fat and boil it and press it through a sieve. And that's when you get those little bits of fat that sometimes you see.
Beautiful. And then I'm going to
sorts the seeds by density. An assortment of sieves filter them by size. And an optical scan
would have sort of valued them to the point of try to save them. Okay. There were lots of schools that were formed.
We have leak like a sieve, leak like a conservative.
They're extraordinarily concentrated, as you said, in a handful of cities. Well, maybe it's because those cities.
That in the original plan, we'll keep that on the vehicle. There's a handful of other bags full of other bits and pieces too that will.
Tends to happen is that these handful of female athletes carry the media burden for all of
power plant sightings. It was all happening in the same handful of communities, all communities of color. And the leaders from these communities.
Indians. And then a handful of white officers. And as you said, paid for by.
To disperse nuisance vultures.
Yeah.
What is that?
Effigies.
To disperse nuisance vultures.
Yeah.
What is that?
Effigies.
Them do the same thing.
Right.
So I think
we said that vultures were public sanitation, keeping the highways free of.
Man, that I'd crash his funeral for him. He had vultures in the family, and he had a toxic best mate.
Birds, cheetahs, small cats, vultures, hyenas. Everybody's happy because food is.
Whether we were actually going to see vaccinations flow throughout the country, but especially
to this point of herd immunity. So vaccination is a really important tool for reducing.
And I watched low-income countries struggle with vaccinations because they lacked adequate cold chain storage.
Was arguing at the time that we had to go into the EU vaccination procurement scheme, that we were going to be killing people if we didn't do it.
The main reason for that is our increasing vaccination rates. And that's really, that's really.
I didn't think, thus he's an idiot. I thought that's incredibly impressive that he really feels.
Does anyone in this room have idiots at your workplace?
Well, I dare talk about 3 idiots on this stage. But happy.
Spoken to people who've said we're all lazy idiots in this country, and I've spoken to lots of other people who've said actually, although
the statistics come up with by idiots like myself when we're presenting the program.
afterwards, but I make a strong argument that it was the Romans who invented civil war, not
as far back as we can see. You know, the Romans had to fight the Germans, and they were the only ones who could defeat the Romans.
He then proceeds to hand the Romans the biggest defeats that they had, the biggest military defeats that they.
Anglo-Saxon kingdoms from the departure of the Romans right up to the Norman conquest of 1066. And
Hannibal's plan is, I'm not going to wait and fight the Romans in Spain or North Africa. I'm going to invade.
So it is more like mutual prostitution, but the net result of that act has been the illegitimate birth.
You know, the sorts of bed nets, deworming, things that are like making measurable impacts in the short term.
To be in like a country where you don't have a social security net, you don't have, you know, you have extreme poverty.
To climate accord, committing producers to net zero by 2040. So who's right, who's wrong?
Security net that was technologized through drones and surveillance.
Neighbors act upon us in certain ways. But
of men, human beings, were not pious believers, so they took up arms and wanted to kill the
I think I am a big believer that the most important driver of...
And I remain a very strong believer that women's rights and religion are...
A profound believer in self-government, and it's not exactly democracy.
So you can come again? You can refill?
He's going to be back here tomorrow, I hear.
You'll see me. You'll just see me around. Like, yeah.
We have a backup system where we can go ahead and refill the sublimator tank. It was good to get this data.
That NASA will service and refill for future space station needs. The team's
on that medication to think well ahead of refills, especially if they're on a mental health medication. If they go
and then they get brought back from space station, refilled here at our facility, and we relaunch them every time. So
can change the memory. If you remember some event and then I tell you something about the event,
the sort of course of events, and if in addition to,
and whenever there's something like, you know, an event, an anti-Semitic event, a hate event like the protest that I described,
podcasts and other events at intelligencesquared.com. I'm here with Mark.
And welcome to this Intelligence Squared event in partnership with Slack. Tonight,
I'm also a designer for Coachtopia, Coach's sub-brand, focusing on circular design. And
so with all the caveats, you know, it was sub 10%, right? So the Russians didn't naturally
heal and achieve kind of some catharsis as well. So,
thank you, Moya.
A whole kind of sub-genre of kind of event and kind of analyst
caller, and what made gold money.
Those potential microorganisms map to Earth's tree of life, or if it...
as an herbicide which attacks microorganisms, and the banning of plastic bags.
Fields are the perfect breeding grounds for microorganisms known as methonogens. These microscopic...
We need oxygen. Those microorganisms are eating the carbon found in butter.
The bees and the barnacles, from single-celled microorganisms all the way up to giant whales in the ocean.
Prospect will return to a set of policies, certainly in the international space, with which
committee and head of blockchain and data policy at the World Economic Forum. She's also the co-host of Coin.
1,000 different administrators, entities, policies, bureaucracy, politics, all of that.
Which stopped the bloodshed on the Maidan. Foreign Policy magazine named him one of 100 global...
Be moving in another direction. We should be having policies that shift in the other direction. I never buy this argument. Collect Wolverine art. I have a gallery of Wolverine art in my house. But if I had to...
Not telling people to go into the National Gallery and take a Rembrandt off the wall, or to go...
Turns driving it and firing it in an art gallery that we constructed. Boston Dynamics,
which you can see in the National Gallery, which is this incredible diptych. It's a 2-panel.
But different. Like one has an art gallery, one focuses on like books and culture, and one focuses on food, and it's a little.
Brexit trade deal means that exporting fish and seafood costs more and takes longer. So the fish is less.
3 billion people rely on seafood as their primary protein source.
And the way to. Thank you.
And this is what we are looking at.
Perhaps she's biased that the best seafood in the world comes from Maine. And the industry is the.
And actually, one time we have a local like seafood store, and they did curbside during.
Contingency procedures are in effect.
Their task: to practice a procedure for refueling a satellite. Meanwhile,
products and the procedures. And finally,
on that article, he dives into documents released by discovery procedures in court cases against the company.
You know, we don't have the procedures in place. You know.
기억에 남았던 부분이 예전에는 저희가 장애를 바라보는 시선이 좀 가여운 시선, 좀 도와줘야 되는 그런 시선.
Counting, one must say, they include classics such as The Pity of War, The House of Rothschild, Empire.
Statesman columnist is Russian President, the more's the pity. In the circumstances, what is the best possible outcome that is?
Oh, knowest thou not that his looks are my soul's food? Pity the dearth that I've pined in by longing for that food so long.
Or the dissuading face of pity. Years later, you finish your degree.
Fabric here is about 25% linen, 75% cotton. There's a little strip in there.
Table or a nice piece of linen, or I have this old, like, beautiful.
It was for distilleries, it was for linen and for brothels and all so forth. But
perfectly beautiful slab of white marble with a beautiful white linen napkin and like a vintage fork. And it was just like, I'm tired of that.
Went and put food, furniture, linens, garden tools, TVs, computers, all the way down.
Speed, but then when you regulate that into chunks with this little piece of mechanism that rocks backwards and forwards.
Community in America, and quite a big chunk of the corporate community.
In the US, I think this is a big chunk of what driven Trump. I think it's a big column, so it got a big chunk of space in a very prominent place in the newspaper. But I was
outcomes, yes. So a fair chunk of the book is actually a sort of a how-to manual.
Skull broken, she had her back broken, she had her limbs broken, she got severely burned. Like
didn't have an injury like me, but lost a limb. People who got in car accidents and lost a child, like the most.
He's down in Texas now, lost 3 limbs, right?
Soul out on a conversational limb they never wanted to go on. It is crucial that
these will reactivate paralyzed limbs, convey visual information to blind persons, and
most companies go, I make widgets. How am I going to do that? And that's when IT comes in. And
to use human beings as bargaining chips, as widgets on the board, to try to.
Is like, I'm going to do this widget, 10,000 times a day. What we need to recognize is that
there's a lot of companies, a lot of widgets, a lot of things that trigger one of these things, right?
The people who were making the widgets or, creating the wealth.
It is just the concept of safety. I understand that the stats aren't what they used to be, but how do we overcome that? And so,
boring me with some staggering stats. 1/3 of the food that we produce worldwide.
Information mostly through video. If you look at the stats for next year, I think it's over 8.
We're staring so sadly at those usage stats. Energy was a big cost. The team seemed.
I mean, you've got to think, the stat I always give people is the National Gallery.
On Saturday, I'm interviewing Chance the Rapper. And talking to 2 people who have been very involved.
This guy, this crazy rapper named Old Dirty Bastard. And
African. There's a lot of Kwame.
On Saturday, I'm interviewing Chance the Rapper and talking to 2 people who have been very involved.
Todrick Hall, rapper, singer, songwriter, actor, dancer, director, choreographer.
Rather than reassurance or relaxation or distraction. With Sammy and
having more time for physical activity and relaxation and healthy eating. I think that those kind of
regulations, those kind of relaxation of rules have already happened. It's already been completed. So we're seeing
that skill set or that relaxation element that they're trying to draw in from that experience.
What happens at the end is that relaxation, that moment of
Being called back as a reservist to lead his division, having just become a politician.
Of this century. But there is already division over whether this is an achievable goal.
Probe a little while into some of the ways in which those divisions are becoming more evident in the India of today and what they mean.
Divided. If you think about that division between red wall Conservative MPs and traditional Shire MPs,
including, of course, the UN's population divisions, estimates the numbers to increase to 2 billion.
Was our coach, and so we started training camp.
Excruciating agony. It's the little things. It's, you have a sprained ankle and you press on it a bit.
A little bit faster than for the sprained ankles, right? So the real kicker is, though, they've looked at...
Kevin Durant got injured pretty late in the season, sprained his knee ligament. They lost, I think it was like 5
sticks and rocks. And so they get sprained ankles. And they run mile after mile after mile.
Into these 3 large vessels, using the rainwater for the most part. But this is ideal.
We've had the shadowing of a Chinese vessel, possibly with a Russian captain. We don't know if that's true yet.
Over time, looking at how to decarbonize vessels, which are crucial to our line of work.
And immune cells, and abnormal blood vessels, and even stem cells. And so maybe the tech
live at the bottom of fermentation vessels. Ales like porters, stouts, and pale.
From the trunk and a foul odor emanating from it. They popped the trunk and they found
plasma and nasty litter box odors. And if you're pregnant, delegate that job to someone.
You can always spot spoiled produce by off odors, slimy surfaces, and mold.
Looking for
like primary colors for odor or something like that.
Yeah.
Nature around us, it involves images, odors, sounds, tastes. There were taste tests of shrimp around the Gulf.
And you can dramatically boost the weight of their stool, and actually how that most
communicative, the pose, the intentional laughter actually is more shallow, and this is just a very crude way of showing it, but
wide, but also in some ways quite shallow. And I find myself thinking, actually, of course, about your own party.
Sweaty hands, shaky voice, shallow breathing.
But they're just becoming much less, shall we say, appealing for our world's leaders to fight.
Park or onshore solar facility. I think we're speaking probably, knowledge.
We will have research facilities. We will have tech incubation activities.
Fascinating addition. We have world-class research facilities, major AI companies, and a huge number.
So creating an educational facility there so people can understand what's going on. Building
sort of manufacturing facility. It can go out to remote locations. It can even co-locate inside of nuclear plants.
A book because you had a blog or a vlog and people could get all of your recipes and you
were like watching a badminton vlog or like a badminton tournament. And then we were like, wow, this
a book because you had a blog or a vlog and people could get all of your recipes and you
incredibly silly sketches and vlog videos, then that's what you can see on the Shibsibs channel. But
and when I wanted to start a new website going on from the Brown Moses blog, I wanted a completely different name, not one that was.
It's funny because this priest or vicar came along to one of the shows.
Message should have been conveyed by all the priests of all the religion, but every priest has
church setting by a priest as a marriage, and this was called a.
So in the back. A little section where priests and you stop going because the names on the maps are not.
What's interesting is that a Christian priest from Europe, goes and finds this.
Lebanese government goes to Syria. There's the Syrian government, the Iranians in Syria, the Russians in Syria, and the Turks in Syria.
They're already talking to the Iranians. The Iranians just sentenced another American.
Iranians on the one hand and Iranians on the other. It was something that neither group took.
For I'm proud. It's just not something Iranians say. It's not like the Ayatollah Khomeini was out.
Sanctions. They learnt it from the Iranians. So I think he just felt.
On our Zelensky had a press conference, by the way, super cool. Where do you hold a
constant cowboys on the party conference stage? And all of these things that.
I was in Canada, speaking at
a conference, and I met an
lawyer by trade, did a press conference with us last year, and he gathered all the tech.
Is the Tory Party conference in Manchester.
The problem of the world economic problems of the world economic system, the Bretton Woods system.
Taliban in the provinces outside the urban areas of Afghanistan was the drone.
By spring of 2025, all provinces and territories and First Nations governments had signed agreements.
The province of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. There has
snatches Hong Kong here, Germany snatches Shandong province there, the Russians take a bit up in the north.
Air to ground 2, stand by.
Lima Charlie is short for LC or loud and clear.
Patients who had minor responses to everolimus, they also had a TSC1 mutation. But what we found is that the
live in Lima, in Santiago, in Mexico City, or move there. And
help me welcome Dr. Ivan Paulino Lima.
Foreign to Australia, like braised greens with lima beans. So like, whoa, what's this thing? Or
Vocabio, available in Google Play. Download, discover, improve your English.